they look like a soft touch. I think they're easy pickings. I think that's what the opposition is looking at them. This is easy. There's no real challenge here. It's a powder puff outfit, weak in every department. And Andrew Kavanagh's there tonight, and he was there towards the end of last season when he was flirting with the whole idea, when he was getting kind of caught up in the magic of these European nights. Well, he must see that for himself. He has to realise that the people he's put in charge have basically rendered Rangers as an irrelevance. That side tonight is toothless, spineless, spiritless. They just look like genuine no-hopers. They couldn't even make a contest at that tonight. Roma turned up, they scored a couple of goals, they could have scored a couple more. It was easy. And I don't know where Rangers go from here. I think that Andrew Kavanagh has got to look at the situation and realise he signed cheques to the tune of about £30 million. And somehow, the people that spent that money have made Rangers worse. And I realised halfway through that second half, Kevin Thelwell's name was getting chanted out, and quite rightly so. These people have to be held to account. Because what they've done there is almost insane. How can you spend £30 million and make Rangers so much worse than they already were? And they weren't great to start. So that's a real problem. What's Andrew Kavanagh going to do about it? I mean, and if that was a recurring nightmare for Rangers tonight, and it was, because, you know, we looked at the Old Firm game at the weekend, they were really weak in that first half. You know, Danny Rowe was supposed to bring the energy and the aggression. There's no sign of that now. They went out, they were played off the park by Celtic in the first half. The game was gone tonight in the first half. But if this is their recurring nightmare, then we also saw a horror story for Celtic tonight. Possibly their worst performance of the season, and there's been a few of them. So, yeah, big problems for the two of them.
Another guy who was there, Keith, along with Andrew Kavanagh, was our very own Andy Newport. Andy, kind of fair comment from Keith?
Yeah, it was a really, I would say, sobering night for Rangers. Yet another sobering night for them that they suffered in this campaign. Just second best, you know, from start to finish. You know, it's funny. If only the team had sort of shown the fight that some of the supporters did, resisting the Stewards' attempts to take the banners that crept up at half time around the stadium. The Stewards moved in to try and remove them, but the fans certainly went for giving them up and clung onto them, and even sort of managed to tear them down off the sort of the upper tier of the Govan stand, and sort of paraded them round the bottom there, the Govan stand. So, you know, listen, this is a Rangers team that is just nowhere near equipped for this level of competition. You know, I think we all were surprised by some of the performances previously in the group against Brann, against Sturm Graz, against Genk, but Roma, they were just far too good, far too strong for them. As soon as they went 2-0 up, they just went into cruise control and saw out the game.
I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up, Keith, doesn't it? I mean, you mentioned it yourself. Roma probably in third gear most of the game.
Yeah, listen, they did what they did. They got themselves in front. I think once again, Giga is to blame for the first goal. Ball watching, dreaming, I don't know what he was doing. Totally lost his man. Easy back post header, nobody on the back post. Second goal, I think Big John Souttar, who could hold his head up high tonight, I think, but he got wrong side of his man, got turned, really easy finish. And nobody covering on that side, on the right-hand side of the defence. These really sloppy, easy, soft-touch concessions. And you just can't survive at this level. And by the way, Roma, from that point on, they weren't busting a gut. They knew they had it under control. They knew Rangers were offering nothing. Chermiti up front, nothing. When he got his opportunities, he made a mess of them.
Sorry to jump in, Keith, because I know we've only got Andy for another couple of minutes, but yeah. I wanted to ask about Chermiti. What did you make of his performance tonight, Andy?
Do you know what? I mean, I thought it was probably his best display in a Rangers jersey so far, but I don't think that says much. I mean, certainly he got himself involved in the run of play. He was more of a focal point than we've seen him be. He helped the ball up well at times, but listen, when you pay £8 million for a striker, you're expecting some end product. He had 2 big chances, one in each half, and took neither. And listen, that's what his reputation is going to be judged on. It's whether or not he can score goals and big goals at important moments. And he had, as I say, two huge chances tonight, took neither. And that is why fans will rightly question his signing, will rightly question Kevin Thirlwell and whether or not he is the man to lead this January recruitment drive. Because right now, there is little evidence to suggest that he should be allowed anywhere near that Rangers checkbook, because he's had £40 million to spend this summer, and he's managed to make a team that was last season arguably one of the worst Rangers teams in living memory even worse, which just seems remarkable to me.
And just before we let you go, Andy, I mean, a couple of the fans asking, why did Giga and Chermiti start again after Sunday? Why were they even in the starting lineup?
Only Danny Rowe and I assume Kevin Thirlwell might have had some input into that, because like Giga was a bag of nerves at Hampden, and he was just as nervy tonight. And then Chermiti, I mean, I don't know. Part of me thinks that if you've spent £8 million on this guy, you need to give him a chance. You need to try and play him into form, and that's what it looks like they're trying to do to me. They're trying to give him the games and hope that he'll spark, that he'll show something, he'll live up to this potential that Kevin Thirlwell seems to think he has. But I mean, there's just so little evidence to suggest that he's ever going to cut it and is ever going to provide the kind of return that Rangers were hoping for, having spent such a huge sum.
Andy, I need to pick you up on that. Are you saying that you think Kevin Thirlwell is influencing the team selection?
No, but I imagine that, when Kevin Thirlwell's, when Danny Rowe's been appointed, he's been given some sort of, remit in terms of what it's to do. And I think, it's no surprise when a manager comes in that he will go with the guys who have been signed for a lot of money this summer, that they'll, you can always see that Lyle Cameron seems to be the one paying the price for that. He wasn't obviously a Kevin Thirlwell signing. He wasn't a Russell Martin signing. Right now they're focusing their price to what extent is that working? Not much that I can see right now.
Andy, I know you've got post-match duties to get on with. Thank you so much for joining us in the Hotline Live. Massively appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Andy. Andy Newport there. Always good to have him on. We've got plenty of comments coming in already, Keith. And if you're watching at home, let us know what you thought of tonight's results.
Before we go on to them, Daniel.
Of course.
I think there's a really important point here. And that's why I asked Andy there what his thoughts are. Is Kevin Thirlwell influencing team selections? I strongly suspect that he is. I strongly suspect that that's part of the reason that Danny Rowe, a 36-year-old guy with, one full season as a manager under his belt, got the job. I think that he would have taken it in just about any terms. And I think that other people Rangers were speaking to made it clear that they weren't going to be dictated to or influenced. And I think it's a huge problem. I genuinely think it's a massive problem. And if you look at the individuals that are being played, that are getting game time, even by the end of Russell Martin's time in charge, the penny had dropped and he realised he was playing as many of the players that weren't brought in over the summer as he possibly could. Since Danny Rowe's come in, then I think the data will show you that they have returned to playing the players, as many as possible, that were brought in over the summer, and their downgrades in every single position. This is actual it's borderline a disgrace of a Rangers team. As Andy said, they weren't great last season, but by God, there'll be Rangers fans out there, pining for the days when Barry Ferguson was in charge, and at least making them competitive, at least making them fight, scratch, and put up a contest. This Rangers side looks incapable of that. And Danny Rowe, when he first came in, I think there was that little bounce. There was a little bit more energy and aggression about them. Not now. It's gone already. I just get the feeling that this goes from bad to worse. And I keep coming back to it. How many times have we said it? The only person that I think is sitting there rubbing his hands right now is Derek McInnes.